In a world where over-the-top performance is rewarded, I find myself more and more intrigued with what I've termed, borrowing from quiet luxury, quiet strength. And in my opinion, no one really exemplifies quiet strength in the public eye as much as Catherine, the Princess of Wales. A lot of people, including Meghan, if you believe rumors, like to use Catherine's very soft-spoken, gentle nature against her. They call her a Stepford wife, weighty Katie, someone who only exists to serve her husband and the royal family and do as she is told, like an automaton. And I personally don't think that is at all a fair or accurate portrayal or representation of who Catherine, the Princess of Wales, is. And so I thought, in honor of this, the day of her 44th birthday, I would make a video in tribute to quiet strength. Because for all her beauty and her fashion sense, I really don't see a lot of acknowledgement being given to Catherine's quiet strength.
I am proud to be a woman and a feminist.
Speaking of Meghan Markle, I really want to try to avoid to bring her up in this video, and I want to focus on Catherine. But she is actually one of the many examples of women in particular, but of course also men, who seem to think that saying something often enough will make it real. And we as the public have to believe it at face value, even if the words completely contradict the behavior. Now, with women like Meghan, feminism is almost their middle name. They bring it up any chance they get, going as far as to hijack events and interviews that have nothing to do with the topics. And the saying, "the lady doth protest too much," comes to mind. Or should I say, if you have to say it. The concept of being a strong, independent woman who don't need no man is something that these women repeat so many times, to the point where you start to think as a member of the audience that they're trying to convince themselves. And what's really ironic is it is these very women who can't stomach criticism. Meghan Markle, of course, Amber Heard, Blake Lively, they all go full-on offensive mode if they are ever criticized, if they have bad press, if people are not worshiping them and lapping up everything that they have to say. And I don't know about you, but to me, that really doesn't scream strong, independent woman, does it? Now, when you turn your gaze upon Catherine, you start to get a very different picture. I don't want to go through the entire history of Catherine's life in the public eye, but as someone who was a child when she and William were dating, I did in a sense grow up with their romance playing out in the public eye, and yes, in the tabloids as well. And even child me knew that Catherine was really not given an easy time by the press. But the one thing she never did for the almost, 10 years of courtship before they got engaged was complain. And so before she was a royal, before the maxim of never complain, never explain was probably explained to her as an integral part of being a member of the royal family, she had already adopted that.
Happy birthday.
I was never really interested in the royal family before Meghan Markle joined it, and so I can't really speak much to how Catherine was treated after her marriage. I do recall that she was called work shy. I recall that she was called a Stepford wife, as I said, someone who has no personality, someone who's bland, who just smiles when she has to smile and nods when she needs to nod. She is naturally a shy and reserved person. That much is clear, especially from their engagement interview. And there is nothing wrong with that. Being shy and reserved is not in any way an indication of being weak. But also, it's part of the job to just smile and nod and be pleasant. The royals aren't some caricatures trying to gain the attention of the world through their antics, such as many people on the internet do nowadays. They know their place, they know their role. And sometimes the role is, believe it or not, to smile and nod and shake hands and be pleasant, and not showcase your personality. because that's not part of the job description. If the personality comes out naturally, which it does with William, with Catherine, and any other royal I've observed, then fine, but it should never be the highlight. It's never the main show. In fact, that would be against the very concept of being part of that unit. We're very much the same in the military. You're part of a unit. It's not about the individual, which is something that Meghan Markle, for instance, could not stomach and possibly did not understand before marrying into the family. And so when she tried to make it about the individual rather than about the bigger picture, rather than about the monarchy, she just couldn't hack it and left. Which is, in my opinion, a sign of weakness. Not just narcissism and stubbornness, but weakness. There's no resilience there. Not everything is going to be comfortable. Not everything is going to align with your personality and with your likes and dislikes. Sometimes, especially at work, you're going to have to do things that perhaps you really don't feel comfortable doing. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, Catherine was clearly awkward and uncomfortable at the beginning of her life as a duchess back then, and now as a princess. She's really come into her own. And that's because she did it often enough. She persevered to the point where it's second nature to her now. We can all see how much more comfortable she is in public, how much more comfortable she is at public speaking, which she hates doing by her own admission. She still did it for years. She's doing it more now, and she's getting better at it. More evidence of her strength can be found in the fact that Prince William, who is a very strong personality in and of himself, acknowledged by his own mother, the late Princess Diana, he sees Catherine, by all accounts, as his rock, as his stability. And for someone so strong as he is to feel that way about her, in my books, that speaks volumes on her strength of character. Quiet as it may be, doesn't mean it's not there. It's like Meghan says, right? The quiet part of the song is still part of the song. And it takes a strong person to take on a future king as well. Many people like to say, oh, Catherine planned and plotted to marry William. That job itself, being married to such a public figure for the rest of your life, having people criticize you and watch every little thing that you do, putting up with salacious rumors of affairs and domestic violence, that itself also requires strength. I would also venture to say that Prince William probably wouldn't have thought she was a suitable wife, suitable candidate, had he not seen all of these qualities in her. That's what really differentiates Prince William and Catherine's relationship from Meghan and Harry's. They took the time to really get to know each other. Prince Harry couldn't even really get to know Meghan, get to understand whether she really is cut out for this job. Speaking of which, the rumors, the drama, the headlines, they were bad enough before Meghan Markle joined the family, but of course, everything went from 0 to 60, if not higher, when Meghan Markle became the Duchess of Sussex. There was the Sussex Squad full stop, terrorizing Catherine, sending death threats directed at her and her children. Then, of course, the Where's Kate situation, when she was recovering from major abdominal surgery, the whole Mother's Day photo, which, yes, she admitted to playing around with in Photoshop, as a lot of us do. That just added fuel to the fire of Where's Kate. It got to a point where no matter what she did, people simply used that against her, full stop. And then, of course, it all culminated in her feeling the need, as a sick young mother of 3, to sit there all alone in front of a camera and announce to the world that she is dealing with cancer. And she did all this quietly, behind the scenes. Goodness knows what trials and tribulations she went through with her treatment, but we didn't hear a peep. Which brings me to this article by The Times, which was released recently, about Catherine and why she really does have the makings of being such a great queen. I only want to focus on one part, which is that she listens. And when it comes to being a public servant, which really at the end of the day is what a constitutional royal is all about, if you can't go out there and engage with people and actually be interested in their stories or the charities that you work with, then are you really capable of doing your job? Secure people don't walk around constantly thinking about themselves. That, in my opinion, as someone who is not a licensed mental health expert, is a hallmark sign of insecurity. Only fretting about yourself. Narcissism. At the core of that personality disorder is a fragile ego. And that's what impresses me the most about Catherine's brand of strength, which I'm calling quiet strength. Quiet confidence. She just is. She doesn't have to force you to see it, which is why she's okay being herself, being soft-spoken, being gentle, being quiet. She knows who she is, and that in itself is a form of strength, I believe. Knowing who you are and being happy with it, being secure. And she doesn't feel the need to advertise it, to convince you of who she is. There's a saying that comes to mind, actually, the empty vessel makes the loudest noise. And I think Catherine is the perfect example of the opposite of that. She is full of substance. She is full of surprises too. Like playing the piano at that level. I had no idea she could do that until she debuted a performance a few years ago. It's not something she advertises and makes sure to mention in every interview. Did you know that I'm an accomplished pianist? Oh, yeah. I won awards as a kid.
When I was 11 years old.
She's a great, accomplished athlete. Never talks about it. She just does it. That's the thing. She just does it. Nike should consider using her as, as the face of their brand. Just do it. I think that's all I have to say, other than happiest of birthdays to the beautiful, resilient, and oh so strong Catherine, Princess of Wales. May you have a very long and healthy, prosperous life ahead of you with your beautiful, wonderful family. I'm going to close off by saying, in a world full of Kardashians and Megans, be a Catherine.